Hello and welcome. I'm Divina Gupta. You're on Work Life India. And yes, we are a bit early today because guess what, where we are? We are at a fun zone at the National Science Centre in the capital of India, Delhi. And the reason why we're here is because you can see children around here, you can see people around here, and that's because this week we're talking about science. We've had the Nobel Prize winners who've been announced this week, and as the world is congratulating them, we're also asking questions if we can have more women scientists. Remember, only 20 women scientists till date in the over 100 years of Nobel Prize history. And also, how can we inculcate science education from the grassroots? And let me start by introducing our panel, and keep writing your questions to us because it's going to be a very interesting session. It's not a boring science class, let me tell you, because right now we have one of our panelists here, Rishabh, and he is a robotics engineer from Peer Robotics. Rishabh, where is the rest of you?
So this is an illusion that you're looking at. So we are using mirrors to make it seem like my head is floating. And you can find it in a lot of other places like barbershop itself. That makes it seems like a bigger one.
Barbershop, and you're actually in there, aren't you? All right. Is this what inspired you to be a scientist? Take robotics?
I mean, different stuff, but essentially the core idea was the same. Something with technology that can make a difference.
All right, I request you to come out because let me introduce our second guest till then. We have Dr. Sakshi Dhankar. She is a professor in the Indian Institute of Technology, which is a leading institute in India and has lots of scientists. But Sakshi, where are you off to walk today?
Oh, this feels like you're walking on air. So it gives you more confidence and, yeah, like you said, oxygen to the brain.
And Sakshi, do you think that students who come to IIT, it's a very competitive exams, let me tell you, but only 10% applicants are women, and we need more women in science?
That's true, and I think government is trying to add more schemes to the current schemes, and they are trying to pull in more women engineers and even women faculty to the IITs.
India is at the Global Innovation Index at 52. What can we do to promote that? Sakshi, while you come down from here, I have Rishabh with me. Rishabh, how can we promote more innovation? What do you see in your generation? Are people more receptive to science, or do they want to go with other fields?
No, definitely. If we give the opportunity to people, the enough funding, enough support in the sense, then everyone wants to work on the technology part. They want to build something cool. So that's my experience as well. While studying in IIT Delhi as well, we had the robotics club, and given enough funding, we were making a lot of cool stuff. We were breaking a lot of cool stuff.
So but you come from a privileged background. What's the situation, Sakshi, in most of the schools in India? Are students being encouraged to take up science? Is there enough facilities for them?
I think it's still coming up. Not that all schools have the facilities and not that everyone is aware of it. But I think things are changing now. There are lots of, in fact, internet is one of the platforms where people can get a lot of information. So I think things are changing, but yes, there's a lot to do.
Let's take a tour of this gallery as well, because as things are changing, you can see so many parents are here with their kids and they're enjoying a day out, because each of these exhibits are actually practical in our lives. And when you look at different science concepts that are being explained out here, it's sort of a game to encourage more and more children to play. And in fact, this is a probability curve. आप क्या कर रहे हो यहाँ पे?
No, I was just I was just wandering here, and it's nice place. Actually, I think that all schools should bring all the students here in science center, because they get knowledge about many things here.
All right, do you know what this is? Let me tell you. It's a probability curve, and I was a science student. So in fact, Professor Sakshi can explain this more. Sakshi, what is this? Because the median always goes up. It's a probability curve. And in fact, how you can see that any time that you put it down or up, the probability of the median is high. So does that mean that the probability of students being scientists is also high in India?
Yes, but that it goes through a narrow curve. So I think we have to look at that narrow curve so that we get more students.
Well, I'm telling you, this is all science, a science explanation. But let me get you again to another of our speakers. She is a young 27-year-old Pritika Mehta, who is a tech entrepreneur. Pritika, what are you playing with?
So this is Ellipse, and we are just experimenting with how, any wave that leaves from one focal point is going to touch the other focal point. And yeah, this is what we are learning.
How fulfilling is science, Pritika? Because a lot of time we question about women choosing science, girls choosing science. How fulfilling is it?
It is so fulfilling, like especially in the Indian culture where there are so many superstitions. I believe with science, we are able to answer each and everything. And yes, you get answer. Nature in itself is so amazing. And when you get to learn about laws of nature, when you get to learn about, everything around you, it's amazing.
Right. Michelle is watching us from Denmark. Tell us what's the situation at your end. Do you see many scientists? Do you see many science students, especially girl students in your class? We also have an amazing curator here, and he takes students out to show them what these exhibits are. How many students do you get on an average?
On the daily basis, maybe it's around 4,000 to the 6,000 students we handle daily.
And they all want to learn about all the exhibits, or are they just here to pass time and bunk school?
Not like that. Definitely, if they are over here, so they are for the learning purpose. And there's a lot of students are over here for the learning aspects, and they have a lot of questions and query about what is the science behind of this exhibit, and what is the different thing over here, and we are playing with it. But what is the basic science behind it? So we are explaining for her and him to just understand in the basic level. Exactly. So if they are implement on the practical level, so it will be definitely a ease to understand the basic science, and it will be lead to the exposure.
But in India there's a huge emphasis on rote learning. Let me take all our speakers here, because we have the person who can answer all of these questions. The guy who's curated the National Science Center. He's been here for about 30 years. We are with Mr. Ramdas Iyer. Welcome, sir. He is the head of education and National Science Center as well. So, sir, tell us first that what is this experiment about that I saw you explaining it to a lot of children. What is this?
Yes, sorry at the outset my throat is a little bad. I must apologize. Hi, hello to all of you. This is an exhibit which explains the Bernoulli's principle. Let me tell you what Bernoulli's principle is. Let's take a look at this first. You see what happens wherever I tilt this, the ball moves in that direction and stays there. As long as I stay within certain limits. Why this happens is, air is blown out through this, and when air comes out, there is an area of high pressure created here, and there is a low pressure area created in the middle. And what happens is the ball tends to stay enclosed within that high pressure space.
Okay, so where is it used in our practical life? Any use?
It is used mostly in aeroplanes. Aeroplanes fly because of Bernoulli's principle.
So this is actually the principle because of which the aeroplane flies. Sir, if I can...
The wings have got a certain shape, and because of that, air flows in a particular way below the wings and in a particular way above.
Science flight today. I'm on a science flight today. Can I request you, sir, to please join us here, Mr. Iyer, because now we have all the panelists with us, and let me just ask this question. Please, Mr. Iyer, if you could come here. India ranks right now on the Global Innovation Index at 52. Can we help and make it achieve a higher ranking? And how can we do that? How can we do that? Okay.
I mean, so first thing is we have to start making things in India. That's what we are talking about here as well. Innovation, when we talk about innovation, it's not just about providing services, it's about making technology in India itself. So whether it's robotics, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's, smartphones as well, we have to create our own designs and start making them so that we can be a global supplier, not just, importer of technology.
But can I say something? That the way you explained this principle right now, Mr. Iyer, I have never been explained this in my science class, and I'm a science student. I had to learn a lot of books. I have to learn a lot of multiple choice questions to enter into institutions of Professor Sakshi, which she is representing. Why can't we have such simplified solutions in our classrooms?
That's the smartest question I've ever heard. It's in fact the very sad fact of education, science education in India, that we don't make it interesting. We need to teach students to learn for themselves and then unlearn and relearn very, very quickly. because science and technology changes very fast. It is the technique of learning, unlearning and relearning that we need to teach in a very fun way to students, which is what we attempt to do here rather than give lectures and things like
Yes,
that.
but we also have the professor here. Professor, what do you think? Why is it that the education, are they under a lot of pressure to have students who can perform on the basis of marks rather than understand?
I think mainly we should introduce or at least encourage experiential learning. So that, especially science. So science cannot be just done with books or lectures. So it should be something that students do on their own. I think once we start cultivating that culture in our education system, from the very young age, students will get an exposure and they will be able to get into science more.
Well, we have Bishanga from Tanzania. She's watching us. Thank you so much. Well done, BBC. She's saying, I would say, well done, the panel. Maring from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you again for giving us comment. Michael is watching us from Denmark. Irfan Sheikh from Sindh is saying, great topic. Thank you. Do tell us what's happening in your country as well. Omar says, amazing women to our panel today. Leslie is also commenting on the location of the National Science Museum. There you go. You have a fan of National Science Museum. Quick, fabulous science space for young students. It doesn't end here, Leslie. We have some more exhibits to show you. Please come. Can I request our panelists also to come with us? Because here is another exhibit of magnetism. And Professor, if I could ask you, Professor, if I could ask you to push it from the other end. If you could push it from the other end. And no matter what we do, actually, it doesn't meet, right? If you push it like this, it doesn't meet. What is the principle here?
I think it must be the same kind of poles like North Pole and South Pole, which really do not attract each other. They would repel.
Right. Pratika, since you are the woman coder out here, have you ever seen an exhibit like this in our classrooms in schools? Ever to be explained to the students?
No, sadly no. And I wish I had this during my time because everything I learned was to get marks. You know, had it been explained this way, I am sure, I would have widened my horizon of knowledge in many different fields.
Absolutely. Send us more of your questions. The other big question in India when we speak about is, should there be a quota so that there could be more women students who could enroll in the science field? Rishabh, when you were in college, in your engineering days, how many women students were there?
So my background from IIT is like mechanical engineering, and if I'm not wrong, it was like 1 in 110 guys. So yeah, it was pretty bad. So definitely there needs to be more representation of women in engineering, in technology in general, and even in startup culture. If you go through this, you will see there's like a lot less people or a lot less women founders, CEOs or CTOs. And from our startup like Peer Robotics, Tanya Raghuvanshi, who's like one of my co-founders, like we started this company without about thinking about it, right? Like there's a woman CTO, but once we started approaching people, we similarly like got a feedback that, oh, you have a woman CTO? That's rare. And that made us thinking like, okay, it's actually a problem. Like people don't have women co-founders in general in India.
Absolutely. But in fact, according to the United Nations, there are hardly about 30% women researchers in the field of science. India, it comes down to barely 14%. Professor, is this true what right now Rishabh has said in our institutions? Do you see many women students? And when they come, are they an exception more than a norm?
Well, this is true that the stats are really bad. We have very few women students in the classrooms. But then I should not say that... sorry, what was your other?
I was asking if we should have quota for women as well so that there could be more women students.
So for the quota, at one time we say that men and women are equal, and at one time we create a quota. I believe if the bent of learning is the same for both boys and girls, then we should provide same kind of education, but provide them an opportunity. So you should encourage all students and allow women as well.
What do you say, Mr. Iyer? Because on one hand, what Professor Sakshi is saying is true, that there should be equal opportunities for everyone. But a country like India, with a lot of cultural context, where women also bear the double weight of managing a household, young girls are groomed, I would say, for marriage, and so that they should get married early. And as somebody told me lately, that marriage is the god in India. A lot of young girls are not given the choice of opting for science. Would a quota then help?
I'm not commenting on the sociology of this, but among the students who come to National Science Center, it's mostly girl students who come to me with questions back from the galleries. What I see from that is, if the students start from a place like this, I should not sound like I'm advertising the National Science Center, but if they start learning science this way, then women will automatically come up and take up science as a career option rather than giving them a quota or whatever. That's
What about funding? Because another big question that comes is funding. And Pritika, I remember we had this conversation. But before we take it ahead, let's also take you inside the National Science Centre, because there's another exhibit that we must talk about. Because when you talk about funding, a lot of research money that is given for different subjects, that's where you've seen most of the innovations being done. And imagine if you don't have enough money, where can the scientists go? After all, everybody needs to earn their bread and butter. So do we need more money so that scientists can create something that you'll see around here? And let me take you to this exhibit, because when I saw this, I immediately understood that nuclear energy is the future of our nation in India, where there are about 1.2 billion plus people. Energy crisis is already seen in different villages, and this is where the answer is nuclear energy. And a lot of people have said this is just one tiny uranium pellet can actually light up Indian homes for 12 months, one Indian home for 12 months. But you need research for that. So Pritika, what's the answer right now? Do we have enough funding in our country to promote scientists to experiment like this?
Not at all. I would say, one reason why China is ahead of us is they spend 2.1% of their GDP on research, where India spends only 0.7% of their GDP on research. We need a lot of support in research so that innovation can take place, especially in startups, where only 2% of the funding went to women founders. So you can see there is a bias that exists there, where 98% of the funding went to men-led startups. So so there is a bias. In fact, as my own story, I came back from US to start my own business. And when I used to meet investors and tell that I returned from US, the first reaction was, "Oh, you were missing your family, that's why?" And I was like, no. I wanted to run my own business, and I saw the opportunity in the Indian market. That is the reason why. And when I used to ask my male friends who also relocated from US, they were like, no, they never asked me, they never told me such things. And
Were you able to get funding easily when you started?
we are still bootstrapped.
As an entrepreneur for science and technology?
No, we are still bootstrapped, and
So Rishabh, is it true that if you have a male co-founder on board, it's easier to convince the investors to come and give you money? And this is different from research, I would say, because this is a private entrepreneur venture that you start.
So I would say I'm not sure about this part though, because like for my perspective, when Tanya was there and when we are talking to investors or someone, it's always about the tech or the market that we are dealing with here. Like I was fortunate enough in that sense that we were not able to, or we never engaged in that sort of discussion. But at the same time, I do believe, coming back to your original question, that in tech, India has to take big steps, because when you talk about Indian mentality, it's about buying things that are already being tested. But that's not going to give us an edge ahead other countries. If we want to do something, if we want to go ahead, we have to invest in something that's never been done before. And that's where the true potential lies of developing. So rather than buying things, that's already been tested, we have to make things that's never been done.
Next Apple from India, next Google from India. Can we hope for that? Well, you also have Narayanan, who is a regular on Work Life India. Thank you, Narayanan. He says we should start a national level webpage about science and post-science information there. We will gain knowledge in others as well. Thank you. I think I really appreciate this. What do you have to say for that, Mr.
We certainly can do that. But again, coming back to the question you asked about research funding, if you want my opinion, in many parts of the world, especially in the Western world, a lot of research is being funded by private parties also. But in India, Indians look mostly at the government for funding. And that is, I agree, at a miserable low, except for some areas like nuclear power and space technology and things like that. Otherwise, government spending on research in science is very low from the government side, but it's much, much lower from the private side. Big private enterprises also do not support research as much as they should be doing.
So we need more in that field. Richard from Kentucky, the US, is watching us. Thank you. Tell us your question as well. John from Iowa has a counter comment. He says that science seems to cause more problem than it solves. What do you have to say to that, Professor?
Well, that's in a way true, that science really creates problems, but then it's also provides solutions. So it's not just science. I think it's science, technology, and research which can help us provide more solutions.
Absolutely, a solution-oriented approach perhaps can work. But what do you do for the rural India? Because a lot of our population, especially in India, is living in our villages where there is obviously a gap for digital gap. There's a gap in terms of infrastructure. And tell us, Mr. Iyer, what is being done to ensure that science reaches the grassroots level of our country?
Let me tell you what we do at the National Science Center here. We send buses with exhibits, scientific exhibits and activities to a lot of rural areas and villages, so that people who cannot come to the science centers, science museums, get access to our exhibits and to our activities. We have been doing that for the past 60 years now, and now we have released another set of buses, 25 buses, some last month.
So that's one approach. What else can be done? Rishabh, you were nodding when I was asking that question. What else can be done to promote science in rural India?
I mean, education is the key. Like, whenever you talk about development, it's education. So we have to ensure that those people are also educated. We get the first level, prime level education to every kid in this country, male, female, no matter what. But once we start empowering them via education, we'll start seeing the difference as well.
Absolutely. What about women in science? Because that's another area that we touched upon earlier as well, Pritika. And that's another area we will be talking about also on BBC World Service and BBC World News today on Work Life India at 15:30 GMT. You can tune in and watch us. It's a session in collaboration with the World Economic Forum at the India Economic Summit. And that's very important as well. Because as I mentioned earlier, only 20 Nobel Prize winners in science in over a century. And that speaks of a great digital divide and a gender discrimination, I would say, a gender barrier, I would say. What prevents women from coming and taking opportunities by their horn and coming into the science field?
I think it is mostly the societal pressure and the parental pressure that is there in our society to get our daughters married, by the age they turn 25. In fact, this one very personal experience of my friend who was an amazing coder, got an amazing job after her undergraduation, but after 1 year into her job, her parents forced her to quit her job to get married, and now she has a baby. So every time I meet her, she always tells me that she's happy being a mother, but she regrets that she left her career. And I think this is the story of millions of girls out there in India.
Professor, who's still teaching, but Professor, there's another side to it, because a lot of people say, yes, women have great degrees, they're great when it comes to education. Most of them also choose a career where they can balance their home with their office, and we lose a lot of great brains to this double weight that women have to carry. What's been your experience, and have you seen women change their attitude, the next generation of Pritika perhaps, choosing another way?
Well, it's easy to say than done that it's easy to balance, the double weight that you're talking about. But I feel that, one, it's very challenging. And second, like Pritika said, it's more to do with the societal pressure that woman is generally given the task of the family and the household and the career. So somewhere down the line, career becomes a secondary option. So I feel like you talk about research funding or you talk about the kind of support that we can get. I think if you want women to come into the scientific world, the only thing you can provide is to help her cope up with the different different responsibilities she has. Like for my example, I have a son who is like 4 years old. So I need somebody to take care of him when he comes back from school. So I cannot have him at the office. And I don't have anybody at home. We are now moving towards
You have the option of having a research grant, as Mr. Iyer suggested, which could be perhaps privately funded as well. Would you prefer going into a research field?
Well, I'm already in the research field, no doubt about that. But then coping up that with the other things that you have around you is a bit of challenge. Yes, so I think like at the work, you can have a daycare facility. So if it's there, you can have your child being there. And if you are just married, then it's fine. But then as and when your family expands, you need more support.
Okay, yeah. Great. Leslie says having a bus is a super idea. Reaching to the villages, and Leslie will get you more on that, but I want to just ask this panel about the pay gap as well, because a lot of times we've talked about scientists not getting research money, but is there also a discrimination when it comes to other fields of science where male and females are working? Is there a pay gap? Rishabh, do you see that pay gap?
I mean, definitely it exists. we have to make sure that all of us, whether it's male, female, get the equal opportunity that we are talking about. When you talk about taking responsibility of the household as well, it should be an equal opportunity for. So you can see Icelandic countries as well, right? Like, it's the male and female both getting the vacation time, so that not only the males can go ahead.
You're the new age groom with the equal responsibility. Right. Professor Iyer, last question to you, because do you see this generation changing their outlook towards science? Now, India has made essentially a lot of progress when it comes to space technology, for example. India is now looking at making science a mainstream subject in terms of, we have movies, we have shows about it, and this is a huge leap, let me tell you, for those who are watching from other countries as well, because this is a country which has a huge potential. We've always had engineers, we've always had doctors from this country, but is it now time that the new generation is looking at other fields of science as well?
Yes, it is. We now have a lot of biotechnologists and we have nanotechnologists, robotics engineers, and a lot of such exotic fields coming up in India also. So this is an exciting time to be young and learning science in India.
We have Narayanan, who says science organizations should fund the poor people who have great ideas. Absolutely. Satyam from Nepal says research through joint ventures is a good option. But any ideas on where these people who are planning to be scientists, at least in India, can try and find money and funding? Anywhere that they can go to, from your personal experience, what should they do?
I think VC funding can really help innovation. Yes, venture capitalist funding can really help accelerate the growth of startups who are innovating in different areas.
So what do you do when you're approaching these venture capitalists for money? Anything that you need to keep in mind?
So you need to build your network, very strong network, and then you need to have your business plan in place. So these are two very important things, which would help you raise funding.
Anything to add, Rishabh?
Yeah, better understanding of the market. So it's always important that you know which market you are targeting and how are you going to solve their problems. So people will pay as long as you are solving their problems. Everyone wants to get rid of their problems. So if you want to get money, simple thing is like find the problem that people really want to deal with and try to solve it.
All right. And any other tips that you can share, Professor, for women especially who want to opt for science and maybe in double minds, so young students who are watching right now, what would be your tip?
I think they should not stop. So if it's their dream to be a scientist or to pursue their career in science, I think they should go on. They need guidance, of course. So they should speak to their senior teachers or senior professors and get in touch with them. If women, definitely they should. So I think yes,
And
they
we
should.
all know, if you want to know where science is fun, they should come to
National Science Center.
Absolutely. That's where we are, and we're going to be here for some time because, believe me, there are so many exhibits that we get to see. But thank you so much for being with us, because you can watch the entire episode on how can we promote more women in science. What's holding women back in the field of science? All this and much more on BBC World News and BBC World Service tonight at 5:30 GMT. That's 9 p.m. local India time. So do not miss that, and do share your views on our hashtag WorkLifeIndia. You can also email to us on Delhi_WorkLifeIndia@bbc.co.uk. Show your ideas and we will ensure that we are doing more such shows. So thank you so much for being so appreciative. Take care. See you again.